COVID, and so the boys did not have it, but they were going to pick the boys up and try to do some things to All right, so tonight we are beginning a new class, and this one, of course, is scheduled for the first Wednesday of every month throughout the rest of this year, perhaps even continuing. That's I don't know if that's we'll see how it goes, at least probably to the end of the year. Therefore, the class that we've been having on Wednesday night has not been canceled. I've already been asked a couple times about that. No, we are continuing to study the survey of the books of the Bible. We will continue that on subsequent Wednesday nights. But the first Wednesday night of each month, we will be in this class that we are starting here tonight. Now, the title that's been chosen for this class tonight is Lesson for Men from Proverbs. Lesson for Men from Proverbs. Now, the book of Proverbs is always obviously a very valuable book to every classification of people. There are things written within that inspired document that are specifically advice given for kings, for princes, men, women, fathers, mothers, children, husbands, wives, neighbors, employees, and probably the list could go on. And so every state, there's something for everybody. I can't think of a single person or a single class of persons that would not be benefited in some way by a thorough study of the book of Proverbs. However, since we are now splitting up, the women are going to their class down the hall and the men are meeting here, we are going to primarily be focusing on the sayings within this book that are beneficial to men, both young and old. We have Nathan in here with us tonight. We have Josh Stubblefield in here with us tonight, and so I'm going to do my best to try to teach these. Obviously, some of the things that I said might go over your head, and Josh, Nathan, some of the things I say might go over your head a little bit, but I'm going to do my best to make this applicable for all of us, and I just ask y'all to do your best to follow along, even on those parts that may seem like they might be a little over your head. And so we'll have to work together on this class. But there are a lot of good things that are specifically written in this book for young men like yourselves. And you are approaching that age where you are no longer boys, but you are young men. And so this is a good time for you to start paying attention to some of the things within this book. Now, I think it is a very natural and practical approach to the book of Proverbs to look at it from a standpoint of the value for men. And I say that because its primary author, Solomon, actually wrote it from the standpoint of a father to his son. And so, in fact, especially in the first 9 chapters, which is the first division of the book, the first 9. Now, we're not going to do a lot of introductory material on this because we'll do that in our other Wednesday night class. We'll eventually get to Proverbs. But especially you might notice as we go, you could probably just scan down through the first few chapters and you will notice the phrase, "my son," appears numerous times, where Solomon ends one thought and then he goes back and he says, "my son," and he starts giving advice specifically to his son. Of course, Solomon was a man who was blessed with great wisdom from God, and he wanted to pass that wisdom, just like all fathers, or at least most fathers, want to pass that wisdom that they have on to their children. Solomon wanted to pass that wisdom that he had acquired onto his son. Now, I think there's already a little side lesson that we can apply considering that. When you think about Solomon's life, think about the fact that he had 700 wives and 300 concubines, and he did many things which God told him not to do. And he multiplied his armies and he multiplied his horses and chariots, which was a sign in those days of depending more upon military might than upon God's might. And so he did lots of things that God told him not to do. And so some people have even said he was the wisest fool who ever lived. And so the point I think we should make is that just hearing these sayings in this book, just knowing them, is not necessarily going to change your life. You have to diligently apply them to your life. This isn't some magic formula where you just read it and you go, "aha, now I know the secrets of life." Well, they are secrets of life. These things can help you, but you got to apply them. Think about his son. I mean, he may have had many children. As far as I know, the Bible only mentions 3. It mentions 2 daughters by name and 1 son by name. I'm supposing that with all those wives and concubines, he probably had many children, but the Bible only names 1 son that he had, Rehoboam. And from what the Bible tells us about Rehoboam, he doesn't strike me as being a very wise man. And so Rehoboam had all that his father wrote to him and gave to him, and it really doesn't appear to me that Rehoboam listened to his father's sayings very well. He didn't apply them to his life. And so there's our first lesson tonight. One of the primary lessons that we're going to look at tonight is the things that you're going to learn, that you can learn from this book. They can change your life. They can save you from many pitfalls and difficulties. No matter if I'm not just talking to Nathan and Josh or young people here tonight, but those of us who are grown. These principles can save us from making lots of mistakes in our life, but we have to apply them. So let's not miss that as we go along. Some of the topics that we are going to cover in this class, Lord willing, and I can't tell you what order I'm going to present them in because this book has so much in it. The biggest struggle for me so far has been how to organize it into the way that I wanted to present it. It's just, the book is all over the place with information, and so how do I organize it? It's been a difficulty. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I can tell you some of the things that sound like some very good topics presented in this book for us to deal with throughout this year. One, the one we'll deal with tonight, the importance of pursuing wisdom. The importance of pursuing wisdom. That's the keynote of the whole book, really. All right, number 2, listening to our parents and other warnings for the youth. There's quite a few passages in there that deal specifically with that. So Josh and Nathan, these are going to be next week's lesson. Most likely will be specifically beneficial to you. Having a good work ethic and avoiding being what the book of Proverbs calls the sluggard. You know, that's an important part of the book. Warnings and instructions concerning money and wealth is another. How to respond to discipline and correction. How to receive instruction, receive reproof. In other words, you know, I've known some people who you try to correct them, you try to tell them they're doing something wrong and try to tell them the right way to do something. I don't care how much time you spend on trying to say that in a very nice and tactful way, they're going to be offended. They are absolutely going to lash out. And this book does a lot to teach a person how they should receive instruction. This book will teach us how to determine right from wrong and how to avoid being the fool, as it's said in this book. It'll teach us a lot about avoiding the enticements of. There's 2 particular classes of people within this book that keep on being introduced as kind of the enemy of the wise person. Things that stumbling blocks for a wise person, and those 2 classifications are evil men and immoral women. Okay, and so the evil men and immoral women can be a real problem, especially for young people. People who are naive, people who haven't been in the world very much. It just takes a few flashes of the eyelids of a woman and they just forget everything. And so there's going to be a lot of good lessons in this book about that. Dealing with anger, wrath, and pride are going to be a lesson from this book. Guarding our speech, controlling our tongue. How to be good leaders. And I'm not just talking about how to be elders or how to be a president or how to serve some political office, but in some way, all of us are supposed to be leaders. And this book will teach us how we can all be better leaders in our respective places in life, and how to be good husbands and fathers. And finally, last but not least, if we have the time, there's some warnings against wine and strong drink in this book. And I say last, I don't know how many weeks we'll do this. I'm putting that one last because I feel like I've dealt with that one pretty good on several occasions. But if we have enough weeks, we'll get to that one too. So hopefully there were some things in that list I named that you're excited about. I know there's some things in that list that you can benefit from. Now, one more thing before I get into today's primary lesson, and that is that many of the verses in the book of Proverbs, I feel like, are very difficult to understand in the King James Version. And it will require, some of them might require you to do a little word study. Look up that word in the Hebrew and find out what it means expand what that word means. Or if you don't want to do that, if you want to save yourself a little work, I would advise maybe the New King James. Even though I'm a King James guy, I would advise the New King James or the American Standard 1901 for this study. Tonight I'm using my Dixon Analytical, which is like a relic from an age gone by today, which has the King James Version along with, in brackets, some of the American Standard phraseology in there as well. The American Standard 1901 is a very sound version of the Bible. I put it right there, even with the King James Version. But especially concerning the Old Testament, a lot of people favor the American Standard 1901 over the King James in the Old Testament because it's a little clearer. 1901, maybe you realize that means the copyright is over. It's past 100 years. So you can get online, you can get the ASV for free online. It won't cost you a thing. So just wanted to put that out there for you. Okay, so tonight our topic is pursuing wisdom, the value of pursuing wisdom. That is the main purpose of this collection of sayings that we know as Proverbs, or wise sayings, we might say, is to impart wisdom upon the hearer or the reader. The women are meeting in the class up the hall, Miss Deborah. You're welcome. So the main purpose of this book is to impart wisdom upon the reader or the hearer. Wisdom is sorely needed in our world today. I don't have to give too many illustrations of that, I don't think. It seems rare that a day goes by that I don't hear of something that somebody has done that makes me scratch my head and say, what in the world were they thinking? Can somebody really be so short-sighted? It seems like that kind of thing is happening more and more today. And even my son at 14 years of age just said to me just the other day, Dad, common sense isn't that common anymore. And I'm sure that he heard that from someone, but the point I'm trying to make from that is those words, when he heard them, they resonated with him. At 14 years old, that statement resonated with him, and he realized the truth of it, that in our day, common sense is not common anymore. And so our society is sorely in need of wisdom. Throughout the book of Proverbs, wisdom is presented, wisdom is praised, and wisdom is even personified. And that might be, what is personification? Do we know personification is the giving of human characteristics to an inanimate object? And so Proverbs is sometimes wisdom is spoken of as if she is a woman, and she is calling out to the young people, to the naive, unlearned people, and she's saying, come to me and come get the knowledge and understanding that you need in life. While in some passages in the book, there's another woman standing on another corner, and she's like a harlot, and she's calling them to the wisdom of the world, and she's saying, no, come to me. And so it's quite an interesting illustration. Wisdom personified, calling into the young, come listen to me, while at the other hand, this immoral woman is calling them the other way. And so we will look at some of those if we have time. We may even do 2 weeks on this first lesson on wisdom, since it's so important within the book. So much is about wisdom is mentioned in this book. Of course, the effort is made to give wisdom, to understanding and cautious warning. Throughout the book, it's made apparent that there are, what I'm trying to say is that there are many traps, many pitfalls, many hindrances and hang-ups that young people, rebellious people, unsuspecting, naive people often fall into. One of the points that Solomon is trying to make, or one of the things that he's trying to provide, is the wisdom to avoid some of those things. You know, I guarantee you, Josh, your daddy, he has some wisdom. He's done some things. He's made some mistakes, because we've all made some mistakes. And I know him well enough to know that he don't want you to make the same mistakes he made. And I don't want Nathan to make the same mistakes I've made. And so that's what Solomon's trying to do. He's trying He's trying to prevent his son from making the same mistakes. And of course, this is recorded for us because it's inspired of God, because ultimately God wants us all to heed these words, and He wants us all to learn from the mistakes of the past. Now, of course, we can just ignore it, and we can just, as they say, there's an old saying, we can just learn from the school of hard knocks, right? Anybody know? Do we know what that means? Maybe some of the younger ones don't. When we say learn a lesson from the school of hard knocks, that's a saying, and what we mean by that is you can learn the hard way. You can just ignore what everybody has. You can just ignore the advice that everyone tells you, and you can just go out and do it your way, and you can learn some really good lessons that way, but they come at a steep price. For example, that's exactly the type of person I was. I decided I was going to go out, not listen to Mom and Dad, not listen to God and my brothers and sisters in the church. I was going to go out and live my life my way. Well, I ended up with a drug addiction. I ended up going through some terrible, terrible things in my life. And you know what? I learned a great lesson from it. I learned a great lesson, but at what cost? It was difficult. I could have learned that same lesson just by listening to other people and saved myself a lot of trouble. And that's the point that you're going to see reiterated over and over in this book. If you want to go out and learn, if you want to do things your way and learn life the hard way, go ahead. But what's going to be, at what cost? Suffer financial ruin? There's a lot of financial advice in this book. You can ignore it, and you can go out and you can build an empire for yourself, and you can lose it all overnight, and then you can say, wow, I wish I would have listened. And you can learn a good lesson for it, but at what cost? You can go into addiction. You can marry, have children, and you can make some of these mistakes and lose your entire family. You can break, your whole home will be broken up. And you can learn a lesson that way if you want to learn it that way. Or you can listen to Solomon. You can listen to God, and you can learn it the easier way, right? Or you can end up with a lifelong injury. I know a lot of people who I grew up with who were fighters. Man, they just wanted to fight everybody. They were just always, they were tough, and they trusted in their might. They just wanted to, anytime somebody says something, they just wanted to punch them in the mouth, and just might makes right. And that was their attitude. I know some of them who are paralyzed now because somebody decided that they were too big to fight, and they pulled a gun out and shot them. And some of them are in prison for the rest of their life. And so, again, maybe I'm saying this too much. I don't know, but you can learn the hard way, or you can be wise. You can listen to wisdom, listen to those who have experience, listen to God, who's the source of wisdom we'll talk about momentarily, and you can save yourself a lot of difficulty in life. The most important teaching in the entire book of Proverbs is this one, understanding the value of wisdom. The most important lesson in the whole book of Proverbs is understanding the value of wisdom. And so somebody says, well, it sounds good, but how do you know that's the most important one, Bruce? How do you know that's the most important one in the book? Well, number one, because it's the first thing. It's the way the book of Proverbs begins. It begins by trying to teach us the importance and value of wisdom. Second, out of all the topics covered in this book, there is no other topic that is covered more in terms of space, volume. There's no topic that's covered more than the value and pursuit of wisdom. And third, logically, it just follows. If a person doesn't understand the value of wisdom, it doesn't matter how much wisdom you offer them. It's not going to do them any good, is it? And so this is the primary lesson of the book, the importance of wisdom. You need to seek out wisdom. You need to thirst for wisdom. You need to want wisdom. But next, let's notice verse number 7 in chapter 1. And let's notice the source of wisdom. All right? So, verse number 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. And so and there's other passages that kind of say the same thing. If you flip over to chapter 9, verse 10, I want you to see a similar one. Chapter 9, verse 10. And this time I'm going to read from the American Standard Version. because it carries the idea a little bit clearer. The fear of Jehovah is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. And so these and other similar passages remind us that all wisdom begins with God. He is the source of all wisdom. No one is wiser than God. No one is more qualified to instruct us in wisdom than God. Why is that? Well, actually I said why at the wrong point. I looked down in my notes, I saw why. I meant to get one more sentence out. There are wise people in this world who are non-believers, okay? I'm not trying to say that unless you are reading your Bible, you'll never be wise. That's not true. We know that there are many wise people in the world, but worldly wisdom will never be equivalent to divine wisdom. Why is that? Does somebody want to try to answer that one? Why is godly wisdom, divine wisdom, will it always be more worthwhile than worldly wisdom? Yes, sir. There you go. That is absolutely right. Exactly what I wanted somebody to say, because worldly wisdom, by definition, is concerned with only the things of this world. Divine wisdom will carry you through this life in a safer condition, and it will also affect your eternal life. Worldly wisdom cannot do that. And so there are wise people in the world. We certainly understand that. We see that. But God's wisdom is always going to be more important to us. And so we want to understand from the first chapter, and especially the first 9 chapters of Proverbs, the main point that Solomon is trying to get across over and over again. He keeps drawing the reader back to this same point, that wisdom is something that we all ought to be striving to get. And by that, he doesn't mean worldly wisdom itself, although a lot of the wise sayings that he presents are worldly wisdom. But God is the source of all wisdom, period. And so this is worldly wisdom from God and divine wisdom from God. Any questions or comments so far? And then we're going to actually start looking at some of these passages about wisdom. Okay, let's turn to chapter 2 for a minute, and let's look at verses 1 through 22 together. And I just want you to notice how Solomon keeps bringing out the importance of wisdom, the promises of wisdom. He said he keeps comparing wisdom. He keeps trying to show us how valuable wisdom is. And he keeps trying to show us, if we are wise, if we follow God's wisdom, the effects it will have in our life. And so let's notice this in chapter 2. We're going to look at verses 1 through 22, the whole chapter 2. But I want you to notice in the first 4 verses first. In the first 4 verses, he says, if you will do these things. And then in verses 5 through 22, he tells you the result. So it's if you do this, then this will be your reward. Okay, notice in verses 1 through 4, if you will do this, if you'll do what? 1 through 4. My son, if thou wilt receive my words. And receiving means not just hearing them, right? But applying them. If you will receive my words and will hide or lay them up within thee. What's that? He means, as David said, thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee. If you will receive it, if you will write these words on your heart, if you'll live by them, in other words, if you will put them in you, so that you incline your ear unto wisdom. Imagine in your mind someone going like this. You know, when you say something and it's important and somebody don't want to miss it and they didn't hear it, they might go, wait, what did you say? What did you say? They're leaning, they're inclining their ear. And so he's given a picture of somebody who really wants to know these wise things. If you incline your ear to wisdom and apply thy heart to understanding, yea, if thou criest after knowledge, please. I mean, you imagine somebody who wants it so bad, they're begging for it. They're almost at the point of tears. Please share this wisdom with me. if you're like that, if you want it that bad, if thou criest after knowledge, and liftest up thy voice for understanding, me. Somebody in class, who wants to do this? Somebody shouts in class, me. You know, if you're that person, if you want wisdom that bad, verse 4, if thou seekest her as silver and searchest for her as hidden treasures. You see, imagine if you look at wisdom, divine wisdom from God, if you value it like a pirate does his treasure, or someone who is a treasure seeker, if you value it that much, now beginning at verse 5, this is going to be the result. Okay? Starting at verse 5. Then shalt thou understand the fear of the Lord, and find the knowledge of God. Didn't Jesus say, seek and you will find? There it is right there. If you will seek it, like he said in verses 1 through 4, if you will apply yourself that much to getting it, then you will find the knowledge of God. For the Lord giveth wisdom. Out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteousness. He is a buckler to them that walk uprightly. You know what a buckler is? A buckler is a type of a shield. It's a type of shield that actually fastens on the arm. So a soldier that, you know, there's some kind of shields that are like tower shields and they just carry them out in front of them. Buckler actually buckles on the arm, so a person can actually wield a sword with that arm, and they can swing and they can block at the same time. And so what's he saying? He's saying, God, if you will seek out wisdom and apply this wisdom to your life, God will be a defense for you. He will be an offensive and defensive weapon for you, because the buckler, you can slap somebody with the buckler. You know, it's offensive and defensive weapon. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous. He is a buckler to them that walketh uprightly. He keepeth the paths of judgment and preserveth the way of his saints. If you love wisdom, if you follow what God said, he is going to preserve your way. He's going to watch over you. He's going to help to get some of the obstacles that might otherwise be in your way out. I don't take that to mean that he's going to take care of everybody who would mean you harm. But I think by reading and studying God's Word and applying them things, a lot of those things that you might have otherwise tripped up on them, you won't trip up on them, because you will have been forewarned. And to be forewarned is to be forearmed, as they say. He keepeth the paths of judgment and preserveth the way of his saints. Verse 9, then shalt thou understand righteousness and judgment, equity, yea, every good path. Then wisdom entereth into thy heart, and knowledge is pleasant unto thy soul. Discretion shall preserve thee, understanding shall keep thee. The word discretion there carries the idea of knowing what to say and what to do in certain situations. You know, I can't tell you can't tell someone what to say in every situation. Sometimes a person just has to understand and have a little discretion. They need to understand that in certain situations they should act one way, and in other situations maybe they should say and act another way. A lot of the Proverbs deal with that. In this situation, there are Proverbs that say, in this situation you ought to do this, and in this situation you ought to do that. And so Solomon's saying, if you study these things that I'm telling you here, you will know how to react in all these situations. You can save yourself tons of trouble. To deliver thee from the way of the evil man, and from the man that speaketh froward things. Who's the evil man? Who's the one that speaketh froward things? Who leave the paths of darkness and walk in ways of darkness, who rejoice to do evil, and delight in frowardness, or of the wicked, whose ways are crooked, and they are froward in their paths. Okay, let's stop right there. Two different enemies of those who are wise are presented here. We just heard the first one, the evil man. This is the person, Josh, you have some people at school there's some people that you know at school like this, I'm sure. People who are troublemakers. They're always doing things that are wrong. And they aren't just content to do them themselves, the time will come when they will come to you and say, Josh, you need to do this with us. Come on. We're fixing to go do so and so. Come with us. And that's what this is telling us about. This wants to warn you that when people come to you with such ideas, trying to get you to take part of their evil deeds, don't go with them. It's a warning. It's for us as adults as well, but I think, at least in my life, it's been a bigger temptation when I was younger to fall in with people of that sort. But let's notice the next one. I think the next one probably, no matter what age you are, this next one is probably more of a problem. And to deliver thee from the strange woman, even from the stranger which flattereth with her words, which forsaketh the guide, her friend of her youth, and forgetteth the covenant of her God. For her house inclineth to death, and her paths unto death. None that go into her return again, neither take they hold of the paths of life. That thou mayest walk in the way that is... Or let's stop right there at verse number 19. Let's talk about the strange woman. First of all, what does the word strange mean? Sometimes the Bible talks about strange flesh. Sodom and Gomorrah. We know what that was. We know what strange meant there. I don't have to get into those details in this class. What about strange fire? When Nadab and Abihu offered strange fire, what did it mean? That which was not commanded. And so we got a strange woman here. This is a woman that is not authorized for you to be with. Why? Maybe it's because you're married. And so she's forbidden to you because you're bound to someone else. Or maybe she's forbidden for you because if you were a Jew and she was a Gentile, she was forbidden for that very reason, because of her pagan roots. Or maybe she's forbidden for you because you're a member of the church and she isn't religious at all, and she gives no inclination whatsoever that she's even concerned with religion. Why would you want to be with such a person like that? The only thing that's going to happen from such a union is she's going to lead you away from the church. Isn't it interesting that the world's strongest man and the world's wisest man in history were both led away by women? Solomon, as wise as he was, his heart was led away from God by women. Samson, as strong as he was, his heart was led away by women. It never fails. Some young person in the church is going to start dating somebody they shouldn't be dating, and they're going to receive a warning, and they're not going to heed the warning because they think they're either too wise or too strong to fall into that trap. I got news for you. The world's wisest and the world's strongest have already done it. I don't believe you. Best thing to do is avoid it. But anyway, so many people have been led off the path of righteousness because of the strange woman. She flatters with her. She uses words of flattery. She tells you you're the handsomest looking hunk she's ever seen. She bats her eyelids at you. She makes you feel so good about yourself. The warning here is, don't fall prey to that. What's it say? The warning, it says, none that go in unto her return again. Neither take they hold of the paths of life. Why? Because she leads them away from the paths of life. And once she's got them, they never come back. You're starting to see how much good advice we can get from this book, especially young people. But to conclude this chapter, that thou mayest, he warned us about these two classes of people, that thou mayest walk in the way of good men and keep the paths of the righteous. For the upright shall dwell in the land, and the perfect shall remain in it. But the wicked shall be cut off from the earth, and the transgressors shall be rooted out of it. And so that's just one chapter. The first 9 chapters of this book repeatedly go back to pointing out the benefits of wisdom, the value of it. It's compared to the honey in the honeycomb. It's compared to treasures, silver and hidden treasure. It's compared to gold, fine gold. It's compared to all these valuable things. Solomon keeps on emphasizing how valuable wisdom is. Boy, our world needs to listen to this today. And then he keeps on pointing out over and over, even to the point of just reiterating himself to the point of being redundant. Over and over he keeps pointing out if you will heed these words of wisdom, then you'll avoid this, and you'll avoid that, and you'll get this, and God will do this for you. Over and over and over, he keeps repeating it. Chapter 3, 13 through 26. I think we may have time to look at it for a minute. Let's look at chapter 13. He brings it back up or chapter 3, he brings it back up in verse 13. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise of it, that is what it pays, what you will get in your life from having wisdom, is better merchandise than silver, and the gain thereof is more than fine gold. She is more precious. There's some personification. Now wisdom is being called she. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things thou canst desire are not to be compared to her. Do you think my statement was right, that the most important teaching in the book of Proverbs is the value of wisdom? I think we see it over and over. Length of days is in her right hand. I love this one. Length of days is in her right hand, and in her left riches and honor. What's he saying? If wisdom is on your side, if you have it, not only will you likely be rich and have honor because of it, but you will also have longer days on earth because of it. God will bless you with prosperity. It's not a promise that it's not an unconditional thing. We know that wicked people are, a person can break in your home and steal everything you've got. But generally speaking, if you will follow the wisdom of God, you will live a longer life and a happier life, generally speaking. Verse 17, her ways are the ways of pleasantness, and all her ways are paths are peace. She is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her, and happy is every one that retains her. How far are we going? Verse 26, the Lord by wisdom hath founded the earth, by understanding he has established the heavens. Now he's going back, kind of teaching the same thing that we learned in chapter 1, verse 7. Where does wisdom originate? It originates with God. It was with him from the beginning. By his knowledge, the depths are broken up and the clouds drawn down to dew. My son, let not them depart from thy eyes. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. So shall they be a life unto thy soul, and grace to thy neck. Then shalt thou walk in thy way safely, and thy foot shall not stumble. 2 more verses. When thou liest down, thou shalt not be afraid. Yea, thou shalt lie down, and thou shalt sleep. Thou shalt sleep. Thy sleep shall be sweet. You want to lay your head on your pillow at night and not have any worries and be able to sleep good and sound and peaceful? Attain wisdom, God's wisdom. Be not afraid of sudden fear, neither of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh. Friends, one more verse. For the Lord shall be thy confidence, and he shall keep thy foot from being taken. Friends, we got a lot more to cover just about wisdom, and so we'll do another week on wisdom. But I hope this has been enough to kind of whet your appetite for what's in store. I appreciate your attention tonight.